Stay on target. All right.
All right,
We're
Red
live.
5.
We're live.
There you go.
Welcome to a very late and wrong day episode. And, we've it's just been stupid freaking busy for everybody. I mean, moving my mom down here from Missouri and then work and 50 billion things, helping folks who are here trying to build a homestead south of us and all that. How the hell are you guys doing?
Well, I'm sore.
Yeah, you screwed up that arm pretty good. You broke the radius or the ulna at the elbow?
Radius,
the wrist.
I cracked there's a distal fracture on the radius, but then yesterday there was something wrong with my skin, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I thought, well, I must have a bacterial infection on my skin. So I got some bacitracin and put it on there. And this morning, it hadn't really done anything, but my arm was still sore and swollen. And it turns out that it wasn't bacterial infection. Turns out that it's an allergic reaction, probably to the biofreeze or the tiger balm.
Oh man, because tiger balm has arnica in it. Excuse me. And biofreeze doesn't have, but it has menthol and camphor in it.
Right.
Maybe you burned yourself. You got a cold burn.
Could have thermal injury.
It
Benadryl's helping
like
it.
Son of a bitch, so I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Oh,
but anyway, I took about 3-4 hours back. I took 200 milligrams of Benadryl, and
you're still walking?
Oh yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I've used Benadryl for
I'd
years.
lick a pill of Benadryl. I'm knocked the fuck out to the next day.
Yeah,
Christine is the exact opposite. I mean, she takes a Benadryl and she it's like you gave her meth.
No, yeah.
I mean, her allergies go away, but she
gets really hyper. But I don't know. After I took the 200, it seemed to be doing okay, and I'm probably going to have to take another 50 here in a few minutes. But my son's the same way. I remember we were living a block away from the hospital, and I accidentally gave him peanut butter because it was in the same kind of jar that his cashew butter or whatever it was in, and I just mixed up the two. His fucking head swelled up like a basketball, and I had to
Thankfully, mine is not anaphylactic.
Say hi.
Well, it didn't seem to affect his breathing, but
let's see, Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Hi.
Miss you guys.
Anyway, I recognized the
coffee.
All the billions and billions of little blisters because I'd gone to the emergency room in Tampa when I was working over there, and I had the same bullshit on my hand. And when I looked at it this morning, I thought, this isn't bacterial. This is fucking allergy.
Yeah.
And so then I just cranked down the Benadryl. So like I said, I got 200 on board, 200 milligrams.
Yeah, my lighter died.
The side of my face right here using evil bone water, the Chinese one. And so, yeah, the camphor and the menthol, I put so much, I had a whole burn, like it was a chemical burn all right here from my jaw.
Miss Chemist, remember. I had to borrow Christine's lighter.
I overlook OSHA for effectiveness, okay?
That's right. My lighter died, so I had to borrow Christine. I don't know if you can read it.
Girls, something.
It says, girls are like country roads. The best ones have curves. But it's really cool because it flashes.
There you go.
So we got folks coming in the room here. So I'm going to pop this link right into the chat room right now. Let me copy it here and let's get this literally, I hope it. Well, it's not going to be a shit show for us, but for other people, it's going to be a shit show. Unlike Raven Radio, we can say shit show. I just popped a link into the chat room here, and a couple of weeks ago, a good friend of mine, Josh, and I was on Josh's podcast, and we were talking about a bunch of different things. And one of them that came up was the Asatru Folk Assembly, the AFA, and this is I don't want this to turn into a AFA bash session, but they fucked up. Not that they made a homeschool program, which I think is a good idea. I mean, we need stuff like that. But I am going to read the first paragraph off of the website here. It says, description. For years, many of our folk have watched as the public school system has continued to decline. Activist teachers, Common Core, CRT, and a myriad of other issues have driven the parents of our folk, underlined, to look elsewhere to provide for the education of Aryan kids.
Mm.
That right there, yeah, that's. I was giving him a benefit of the doubt. I read the other parts of the page on that thing, but I actually never really glanced at the. Hello, Tira. I never really glanced at the first opening line of the description. I kind of went through trying to find out curriculum and what they're planning on doing, how they're doing it, what type of program are they going to either borrow from or make on themselves. And I missed that first paragraph.
I still don't understand, and I know we talked about this a little bit ago. Why the fuck are they using the term, like, okay, you're racist, we acknowledge that. I got a glow around me. Look at that. That's kind of cool.
A little halo. Well, the other day,
Why the
when I
fuck
was with
are
Josh.
people associating the word Aryan with what they want as the racial term for white people? It is not a fucking word for white people. It is an Indian word. It is from Sanskrit. It is brown people.
I know.
Like,
but that's been an ongoing thing. Like I said, I've been around
I
here.
say that as the brown person. I know. I'm a white brown person.
Okay, very good. But you're still cute. I've been around this thing since 1968. That's when I first got the Runestone. I think I had the first issue of Runestone, as a matter of fact. And yeah, it's something that bothers me now. It kind of ticked me off back then, but it really scares me now that they're actually trying to pull this thing off, because
They're making the next generation of cultists.
Asatru itself has not had a glorious history.
It doesn't. It
totally
started out,
It started out as a good idea, but the white supremacists got a hold of it, and they've run with the ball. And you could see there was even I saw a photo from January 6th. What would they call that? A party or something? Anyway, there was a guy that had a Thor's hammer on. And if we look back in our own history, the bloats that we went to back in the late 60s, 70s,
or 80s.
Yeah, that there were people there that were flat out racist.
1967. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Bill.
This is something that's just really weighed on my mind. That and it shows up on every single board, even Ulster Lore when we ran that.
Yep.
I mean, we had to keep monitoring that to make sure that it didn't get presented that way.
Yep.
And I don't see the reason for it. I think the reason for it, though, is that there are people out there who think the Nazis were right.
There are a lot. Back in 1967 or so, my old man was part of the original AFA, the Asatru Free Assembly.
Free assembly, yeah.
Right. And he was there for quite a while, up until about 74 when it changed over from the AFA, from the Free Assembly to the Asatru Folk Assembly. And he left. He saw the writing on the wall back then because you had then brand new Odinic Rite wandering in, coming into that. And then you had, what was her name? Elsie Christensen was getting really popular in the Americas at that time.
Yeah, she was Canadian, but she had hooked up with what's his name? She had hooked up with not Gunderson.
It wasn't Steve Flowers. It was oh shoot. Oh gosh, I can't remember the guy's name now that she got involved
The
with.
head of the AFA, actually.
Right.
And her philosophy was basically straight from Nazis. And I think it's just kind of...
The whole thing is straight from Nazis. The term Aryan is Nazi. It's like, what was it? Kusina. He was the one who created the whole pseudo-scientific bullshit thing about the northern people being essentially descendants of these Aryans. So like that's why Scandinavia was so tied to this, but they completely disproved that for genetics. Like even racists disproved it. And they're still using this. Himmler and who was the other one? Rosenberg. They're the ones who took on the concept. Right. So like when they did their little scientific things down in like India and Pakistan and Iran and all that, like it was based off of bullshit, and that stuff is still being used. They're the ones who perpetuated the Aryan term. So anybody who uses that term, you are specifically using Nazi terminology.
Yeah.
There is no way around it.
Well, and
that's exactly correct.
On the school programming, we talked earlier during the show here, a little pre-show, little chit chat here, and what's it going to do to these kids?
It's going to turn them into cultists.
Yes, we're going to,
exactly. It's going to turn them into Nazis.
It's the fucking KKK with a hammer instead of a cone head.
That's exactly correct.
I hope that they prove me wrong. I hope I'm proved wrong. I really do. I really
want.
I really want this to succeed. And I really think that I really, gosh, how do I put it? I really don't really want one of the national organizations doing something like this, because my thoughts on national organizations, even the TROS, TAC, AFA, the Alliance, all them, keep Asatru local. However, there needs to be somewhere, somehow, to do a proper homeschool program. Leave out the, like the Christians have been doing it for decades. For many, many decades, they've had their own programs. And some of them are very Christian-based. However, they are very, very good, well-rounded programs. They teach, upper and mathematics, sciences, English, sociology, civics, stuff like that needs to be taught.
Are they going to teach about evolution?
No.
It says faith-based.
Pope Francis said, evolution is acceptable.
Specifically for this, because it says in the open, like at the very one, it'll provide faith-based education. Does that mean that they're going to teach as the faith and say that the world started from Emian, or are they going to actually say that the whole concept of evolution in science?
I think they can do both. I mean, I really think both of them can be done. I mean, if you really want to go down to the basics of it, the formation of Midgard and Earth in our faith is really similar to the Big Bang Theory. I mean, you got two things, boom, explosion, and shit happened. If you go down to the bare basics of it, where in a lot of the Christian sciences and all that, the Earth is 4,000 years old or something like that.
6,000. Dinosaurs ruled with people.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Creation Museum. That's cool.
You know,
I was
Sean,
listening to
this guy here is part of our kindred here in South Carolina. I don't know if you can see it up on the screen right there.
Yeah. Like, how I'd be interested to see, like, are they literally just creating a Christian homeschool, but then slap a hammer on it, or is it going to be different? Like,
no, that was something that I went over in my head yesterday. I think that's what this is coming out of. That some people anyway, are feeling like we don't have a Sunday school for heathen kids, so we're going to create one. And I was also listening to a show this morning on NPR, and this woman brought up a good point. She said that religion is based on stories.
Okay.
Religion is based on stories, and that there isn't any real truth in it at all. It's based on stories
There's my buddy
that teach us how to live. So, the Christian stories, for example, that are in the Bible, the myths that they have, are supposed to teach them how to not be a dick in the fucking world.
So a couple of things here in the chat room.
Basically, ours are the same thing.
Are they going to open class with a hammer, right?
Huh?
Are they going to open class with a hammer, right?
So,
I thought I bashed that years ago.
So,
I think I wrote a paper on it.
Yeah, you did. I got it too. I should post a link to it.
That doesn't mean people read it.
So a couple of things here. There's a couple things here in the chat room. Connie pops up here. And I'm going to do two. I'm going to put two comments up here, and then we can talk about both of them because both are very, very valid points. Connie says, so if they're looking to the next generation, then why aren't we looking to educate as well? We fix the problems with history by education. And Felicia pops up here. Felicia pops this one. Yes, they teach theory as part of science, but they also cover evolution and explanation in tandem with creatism. And Deb pops this one up here, which is a really good one too. A curriculum that breeds racists. You'd think there'd be some sort of monitoring for that to red flag it and prevent it from being accredited. So, first one, Connie is absolutely correct. It is our job, not as a radio show host or whatever, but as parents or as adults that deal with kids in Asatru at times, to educate. And not by teaching a goose-stepping curriculum. We can't. I mean, the world is too big now. The world is too big. The United States is too big. There is no room for that at all in this country. It's okay not to like somebody. Fine. There's a shit ton of people I don't like. But you can be courteous to them. You can be kind to them. You don't go out of your way to make their life difficult. And that first sentence right there of that opening statement, it's
makes me completely doubt their capacity as an educator if they can't get that fucking fact right.
Right. And then and Deb, red flag laws I got issues with on different things, but but this right here, what this means is like, we're teaching about how white kids are better than every other kids on the planet, or brown kids, or black kids, or green kids, or whatever.
Which is genetically not true.
Exactly, it's not. I mean, Bill and I have been in medicine for way too many decades we care to count. Every time I cut into a person, I don't care what color the outside of it is, it's the same color on the inside. I mean, I take my 10 blade and I make my 2-inch incision. I stick my fingers knuckle deep into somebody's chest and make a little pocket to put a pacemaker in. They're all the same color. It's okay not to like people. That's fine. I have no issue with that. You can dislike everybody you like. But when you start saying, I dislike Chinese, or I dislike Indian, or I dislike Native American or African American or what, that's where we got problems. And I'm hoping I proved wrong. I really am. And maybe I'll get one of their folks on here and we'll discuss it with them. that's breeding something really bad. That's going to. We're already on a knife edge right now in this country. We are so
Yes.
divided.
Yeah. And
We don't need
well,
more of
I
that.
think the last time that I saw this type of division was probably 1967 when the hippies were coming up and the Republicans were just out of their fucking minds, and the fucking National Guard comes in, 4 dead in Ohio. You know, I don't think it's been this bad since then. We've
I,
had it in the past, though. We've had it
oh,
in
you
the past,
have.
and we can overcome it. But it's not going to be easy because we have a Republican Party that is pushing the right even further. I
And
guess we should have done that.
we got. I don't want to get into politics on it, and I see it on both sides of the fence. I mean, you got your radicals on the left and radicals on the right, and this right here is just feeding both of them. This is going to
Yeah.
feed both of them. What do we do to fix it? My thought is, and we've talked about this a little bit before, is we need more homeschools of our faith. I think that's a great thing. I think, for kids that are, especially like here in the South, some parts of the South, or, even in other places, where it's kind of hard to be heathen or pagan, Wiccan or whatever. I think there is a good thing for this. However, though, I think the curriculum needs to be, I hate to say approved because, I hate the fucking government.
No,
I really do.
I would say it needs to be not only approved but overseen. Just the same as if you're going to do it like a school, it needs to be overseen. That's all there is to it.
Okay, how do we do that?
My granddad was in 1932. He was on the school board in my hometown. My grandmother got married to him two years later. She got fired because in Michigan at the time you couldn't be married and be a school teacher. So she quit being a school teacher. She joined the school board until 1968. My sister, growing up, became an English teacher and a counselor. My brother-in-law worked with the kids that were basically being thrown out of schools because they were delinquents or whatever. Right. And my aunt, my only surviving relative here in New Mexico, who's 93 years old, taught, but she would only teach in a school with underprivileged kids. That's why she wound up in New Mexico, because at that time, they didn't educate kids that much. And I really think, and I have 42 years in under the schools. I worked in the public schools, and there's some things that I did not like, and there were other things that I did like, especially when the teachers could pull together on a student that was having particular problems or whatever. Right. And I really think there needs to be oversight.
Right. This is where I get torn on this a little bit, because I absolutely totally hate the federal government. I don't care if it's an R or a D in the office. I'm totally against it. I think it's the biggest waste of money that we've had since 1787. But it's one of these things that I don't think, the Department of Education, the federal Department of Education I think I was probably one of the last generations to graduate high school without a federal Department of Education. It was managed more by the states. However, right. In this situation here, it's kind of hard because South Carolina, as southern states go, is a lot less batshit crazy than Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, etc. And I see a pagan homeschool program, doesn't matter whether it's heathen, Wicca, whatever, not being accredited by a state if the state has total power over it. If they meet federal guidelines, however, I think that should be enough, and that's saying a lot for me. As much as I dislike the federal government, there's I could just see Florida with Florida's wackiness, or Texas, or Louisiana, whatever, Alabama, even Georgia to a point, saying, "Oh, we got a bunch of non-Christian devil worshippers smoking devil's lettuce that want to do a school. Ain't going to happen."
I have an issue with something real quick.
Go ahead. No, that's why we were here to talk
In
about
the
this.
Statement of Ethics posted by the Asatru Folk Assembly, under the Isir Veneer principle, the final statement says, "We believe that through ritual, dedication, generosity, honor, and hard work, our lives and consciousness will be touched by the holy powers."
Okay.
Whatever. I personally,
They realize the context of that word, right?
Right. Sean says oversight is good, but only if it's not governed by religious extremists. And that's where I have an issue with a state accreditation society. Here, an example. It's right now we're coming on election season, midterm elections coming up, and we got people parading up and down the streets, vote for me, vote for me. And the first thing I asked them is, will the Bible guide your work in Columbia, which is our state capital? And when they say yes, it's get the fuck off my porch. Don't want to hear it. Don't need to hear it. The state constitution and the federal constitution is what needs to govern your work in Columbia or Washington. And religious extremists, I can really see it getting screwed up. And Nina, you are absolutely right. Okay.
So here's my other issue, and again, this is more so. I'm kind of like you, Chuck, where I sit on the seat of, I agree that homeschooling is not bad. Religious homeschooling can be okay. My issue is specifically the AFA doing it, because they push all of this bullshit about their common ancestry, their Germanic ancestry, their Aryan ancestry, when literally they have scientists, archaeologists, paleontologists, like everybody, like, well, not necessarily paleontologists, but like all of these people in Scandinavia, the place where they are claiming to be originated from, stating that there were not full white people there. There were Africans who were Scandinavians. There were Middle Eastern people who were Scandinavians. There were Asians who were Scandinavians. All of these people were in the culture. Their genetics are in the culture. So why they have this constant idea, like, no, Scandinavia is telling these people that they are wrong and they are not listening. Why the hell would they be able to make an educational system that would not totally destroy these kids?
Yeah.
I agree.
And they forget something called, what was it called? Oh, the Great Migration.
Yeah.
A bunch of people got tired of the deserts of Iran and went 1,000 miles north.
That was Cassina's theory, and it was proved wrong on so many levels.
Yeah.
Speech must tell we fix this and weigh out the crazies by educating people. You know what? I'm not even going to deal with this.
No. Here's the thing. Freedom of speech is one thing. Freedom of speech that teaches hatred and violence and endangering other lives of the people around you, that is not freedom of speech. That is terrorism.
The flip side of that coin is that if you're not teaching the fucking truth, then what the fuck are you doing?
Well, that's kind of a sticky subject right there.
Cult.
Yeah, you can say, but what really is the truth? Like, we have a common idea of that, but philosophically you can argue otherwise, but you can't argue the fact that everybody has a right to safety in this country, and when you teach against that, you're being unconstitutional.
It's fine, except that if you're not telling the truth, you're fucking lying.
Well,
And that's the thing that really pisses me off about. I was born and raised Catholic because my mom was a Catholic, and when I turned 14, I said, "This is a crock of shit. This is some stupid shit." And when I got to college, my first semester, I had to take astronomy, and I was in pig heaven. If you're going to teach kids, teach them the fucking truth. God damn it. Teach them the truth. You know, they have all these white supremacists have all these phony ideas about people of other races, people of other colors, Native American. It's a bunch of fucking lies. And I really think that in heathenry, that we need to recognize that our mythological cycle that we have that remains are stories, and they're stories by people from 1 to 2 millennia behind us, trying to make sense of their world. And actually, the system that they created can produce really good people.
right.
You know, to me, heathenry isn't a religion anymore. It hadn't been for me since about 2012. You know, religion, I don't need it. What it does for me though, when I read like Egil Saga or whatever, I mean, none of our gods were perfect. They all they all had their faults, right?
That's kind of the
That's
point, though.
because they were us. And that whole cycle of stories is how we learn how to behave.
Right.
It,
Well, we
basically, years back, uh, people don't do it now, but years back, uh, mothers would read Grimm's fairy tales and whatnot to the kids.
I still do that.
Do you?
You're not
so
German unless you grow up with some sort of childhood trauma from those stories.
Oh yeah, there's trauma, but there's
right.
also
In us. Okay,
resolution.
we're talking. What'd you
What?
say, Bill? You
Huh?
kind of went. Yeah,
No,
you
I
kind of
was
went.
saying that. Huh?
Yeah.
What I was saying was that in those stories there is that resolution. The especially like the Frahalla stories or the even a little Red Riding Hood. I mean, there's a resolution to those stories. You can't always count on a hunter to come by and save your shit. Maybe you shouldn't enter the hut in the first place.
Don't trust strangers.
Don't trust
Ooh,
strangers.
Skylar made it in. So we talked about the bad and all that. I'm going to put in a chat room here on this is the law in South Carolina. This is, and I'll pop it up on the screen so folks can see it. It says to homeschool in South Carolina, you must have at least a high school diploma or GED and teach at least 180 days per year. And these are the subjects that you are required to teach in South Carolina: reading, writing, math, science, social studies, and in grades 7 to 12, composition and literature.
Right.
Cool. I'm cool with that. So we spent the last 30 minutes, discussing the shortcomings of that group in California, and But what can we do to fix it?
Get rid of the group. I mean, what?
Well, I mean, us, not so much us three here or the folks in the chat room, but as pagans overall in general. I mean, do our own homeschool program.
Counter educate.
Pardon me, ma'am?
Counter educate. Educate like external of them. Educate like what Bill would say, the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think, but also too, one of the things that Bill and I talked about the other day on this topic too is on history. in teaching history. You know, a lot of history is ugly. American history, if you really read American history, it is not the most flattering thing on the planet. And too many
No, but
times,
it needs that
too many
story
times
needs
though,
to
in
be told.
school, even when I was in school, there were pieces that were left out.
Yes,
And I think the entire story needs
not
to be told.
left out, but
No.
removed.
Do you know that even to this day, in certain school districts in Alabama, they teach the Trail of Tears as a voluntary migration of the people?
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
And
So,
I
you
almost
know
split my shit when I saw that when I was there.
that this the whole thing that's been bugging me about this, and when me and Chuck first discussed doing this particular show, um, my thing is history, and I love reading history anyway. But the false narratives, especially around our country. To give you an example, I grew up 60 miles south of Detroit, and the hero at that time when I was going to school, the absolute, he was like just one down from God. Henry Ford, he was a fucking dick, and he was a fucking Nazi. He sold and traded with the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
He slipped in under the 1938 Trading with the Enemy Act, and so he was selling them rubber, aluminum, and a couple other things. I can't remember what they were. He was able to sell to the Nazis because he slipped in under the Trading with the Enemy Act. He was an absolute dick, and he started a commune down in South America, and he was to be the czar of that colony. That's the way it was going to work, and that's all documented. There's a book called Fordlandia, which was the name of his country that he was going to own in South America, and he was a flat out asshole. He went around. Check this out. He had spies in his organization, in his company, that their job was to go around and look through the windows of the people employed at the Ford plant. And if they were smoking cigarettes or drinking beer, they were canned, just like that.
you know, but back to the school program, I think there are a little bit of looking at there. There are a bunch of other homeschool programs. We tried Connections Academy with Ryan. It didn't work that great for him. For other kids, it works at. When we were in Alaska, Anchorage Public Schools had a fantastic program for Ryan. It's for kids. It's at Benny Benson High School, and basically, you get all the kids in the classroom. However, they are not all at the same spot in the book. There's no daily lecture of, you know, this is what we're talking about, and you have to start here and you have to finish here. They basically gave you your semesters of work, put it on your desk and all that, and then they would do talks on different things. You know, it wasn't like you just sit there and did paperwork the entire day, but they tailored it to where each kid did really good. When Ryan went to high school at Benny Benson, he had a D minus, almost, I guess you'd call it almost, just not almost an F in school. By the end of the school year, his senior year, he was class valedictorian with a 3.8 GPA because they could teach the kids how they needed to learn. And a program like that, you know, is, I think a lot of homeschool programs kind of work that way, because that's what I was talking to one of his instructors at Benny Benson that said they modeled their curriculum at this one high school in Anchorage. Not all of them are like that. It's only this one. It's quote unquote troublemakers or kids that didn't do well. They got sent to Benny Benson, and most of these kids that come out of that school are just fantastic. But they modeled it after a lot multiple different homeschool programs, and I think something like that, yes, with a little heathen taste into it there, to, you know, to be able to understand, you know, our gods and goddesses. And yes, Ymir, was killed by Odin Villian V, and his body parts became that of the universe, and then Ganinga Gap and all that stuff. Yes, that should be taught also. If it's going to be a heathen-based homeschool, but don't, like a lot of our Christian friends do, is they overshadow the real science of, like Nina said, dinosaurs and all, and it gets left out. And I think that's one thing that we got to make sure it isn't happening. So,
well, that's the thing. Like on a good day, and I try not to generalize, but like it's really hard for me to do so. On a good day, a significant number of people in America who say that they are heathen or Asatru or anything like that, they don't actually know the information, and they have learned this diluted down concept of someone's personalized agenda that they pushed with the material. So it's like, on a good day, I am terrified for Americans to be teaching religion. On a bad day, it's like, it's going to be like the next step of complete degradation of what American heathenism actually is.
Mm-hmm. So let's kind of move this into the second part of the show here, because I got to get up at 5:30. So yeah, we can't do a normal hour.
Yeah,
and a
you're
half
2 hours ahead, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. It's 9:41 here. How, from what we have seen coming from different groups in both Asatru and in Christian religion, when did bullying become okay? The reason I ask that is because there are countless examples of people getting, I'm guilty of it more of a picking fun, but sometimes it might have degenerated into that. But I see so many of these so-called wannabe teachers that are also picking on other people, other kids. AFA is kind of an example on that one too. Do you remember? Was it Mother's Day? What, about 5 or 6 years ago, when they had their greeting cards go out and they looked like they were copied off of 1936 Germany? I mean, that's bullying, or like in the other Christian faiths, which I'm not going to get into that too much, but it's like, well, you're going to church together. However, men have to go over here, women have to go over here. And so why has that now become more mainstream? Now, there are big programs.
People are done putting up with bullshit. People are not afraid to speak up for themselves and say, hey, that is fucking dumb. You're being a dickhead.
Right. But the thing about it is, though, if back in school, you got all these programs to take care of bullies, but do they work? I can tell you for a fact they did not work with my sons. What finally worked with both my kids on bullies is what you just said: stop taking it, and both of them got expelled from school. But after that one instance, bullying stopped. But yeah. I see bullying even today. It's like, maybe it's thought out, maybe it's malicious, or maybe it's just the way the person speaks. But belittling somebody over, fucking women, oh man, so you're marrying that whore, or and shit like that. And it is acceptable in certain groups, but when it spills out into the mainstream, it's either that's just the way he is, or that's the way she is, or that's the way those people are. Why is it acceptable to say that? See, that's one of the things that I hate bullies. Oh gosh, I hate bullies. I make it my mission in life to bully them. And even though I hate bullies, oh yeah, I can be a big fucking bully here because I got the.
My favorite thing is trolling the trolls.
I think you have a point there, and I don't really have a good answer for it, even though I worked in the public schools for.
Well, see, my answer is 9mm or better, but.
Yeah, I know, but you can't do that in the school.
You can't do that anymore. Remember the old saying in New Mexico? Remember the old saying from New Mexico? There's more men that need killing than horses need stealing.
That's true. And that's really true. I've worked with some families where the husband was nothing but a piece of shit. But well, I forgot what I was going to.
Yeah, bullies. I don't have a good answer for it.
Yeah,
It's
I don't have a
it
good
goes
answer
back to
for it.
colonialism.
But I'll tell you what, I live probably 15 feet below and 20 feet away from the playground for the elementary school here at North Star. And I get up pretty early in the morning, so I hear the kids come in and hear them on the playground and stuff. Those playground teachers, that's what we called them anyway, playground teachers, um, they're tough. They're tough. She get pissed off. Some kid threw a rock the other day. It didn't hit anybody, but she had them all lined up against the fence, and she tore into him for about 15 minutes. And that was a good thing. Um, I know in a lot of areas though they don't have that kind of supervision. Here, it's still pretty old fashioned. So um, you have a pretty hefty playground teacher here, but I know that Albuquerque, I couldn't bear to go into schools
No.
because
So
the kids had control over
No,
everything,
it's
and the
truly
teacher
a colonialism thing. It really is. It's the mindset that you literally you exert your force on others to get them to do what you want. Because for some reason, whether, whatever here or there, you're literally trying to change their own ethical and moral internalized compasses to do your decision or to go towards your decision by a lot of times peer pressuring them or bullying. Like, it really is. Like, if you look at it, it is truly originated from colonialism. And I hate to say it, and I hate to make it sound like this, it is a white people thing that got pushed
yeah,
onto the rest of the country.
it's true. I heard a radio show this morning. I listened to it. It was about a half an hour long, and they were talking about. It was called Noble Charter School. I think it was in Chicago, and they had real strict rules. They pretty much ran it like a Catholic school. That they had uniforms and they had to have their haircut in just such and such a way. The girls had to have dresses or skirts just so and so below their knee. And the school actually was doing well. It was producing pretty good kids. But whenever they interviewed the kids after they graduated, they hated the system. So what happened was in this particular school, they went ahead and adopted uh, new policies, and there wasn't any uh, no more detention. There was no um, no code on haircuts or whatever, and they dropped several other things. And actually, when they ran the program the next year, the whole school went to shit.
Yeah.
So there has to be some kind of law and order in a public space,
right,
and common courtesy in
right.
a public space. And I don't think that those things can be dispensed with.
So where I want to take this is a little bit further here is what happens when a bully, whether a known one or narcissistic person or somebody who's just their mannerism comes off as a bully, ends up in a position of power. The reason why
I
one
mean,
of the things,
capitalism.
well, no, I'm talking about like as a kindred leader, as a coven leader, or a grove leader, or something like that.
Then you get
We've
the
seen it.
AFA.
Well, even that we've seen it elsewhere too. I mean, remember during the Andrachfein in the part, it wasn't that, it was Tuatha de Brigid. It was a Druid organization that they had a great way to start and all that, and it turned out that the leader was just grooming and culling young women.
Well, that's the problem with alternative religions. They attract the psychos and the narcissists because it's easy to manipulate people who are on the alternative path.
I mentioned this at a Mountain Haven bloat long time ago, and I almost broke a promise to Christine by getting in a fist fight because I had some guy says, "Well, I see why you're the leader of this group because you got all those young chicks around you." And it's talking about you and Kayla.
Who was that?
It was a dirt bag from Macintosh. From the Asatru down there in Macintosh. After we figured out that they were Asatru.
You should have told us. We could have done it. We didn't have a promise to Christine.
Yeah, but I did. But it's like, okay, I was in a position of quote unquote power, more or less, but how could somebody even think that? And then I start looking back at different cults and all that, and I said, I can see that, but I'm fucking offended as shit that somebody thought it of me. It's seen. I've seen it here in South Carolina. I saw it in New Mexico. I saw it in Alaska a lot. In Alaska, not in the mainstream groups and folks in Alaska. 90% of those folks that I met up there are. I wish we could go back and visit them more because they are some of the finest people I ever met. Practice different than we did in New Mexico. Practice different than is done here. But what do you do with a leader like that? Because when you confront that person, and I've confronted some in the past, it's a closed ranks type of thing.
Yeah. I think that's the only way to handle it, really. It has to be, basically it becomes a choice by election.
Just like any narcissist, deprive them of what they're after.
Yeah, but a lot of times, though, is either the charisma or the power or I got some dirt overrides that. So how do we get rid of that? How do we move it out? How do we get it and expose it? I mean, I hate that freaking hate. I mean, I used to be a big supporter of Heathen Against Hate during the early 90s and all that until they went batshit crazy also. Then what was it? Declaration 122, 130, whatever it is. I forgot which one it is. I understand the meaning behind it. You see evil, speak out against it. Times, though, when you do speak out against it, you get a closed rank. So everybody's just kind of, oh, no, that doesn't happen here. That hasn't happened here. How do you break that cycle? That's one of the things that I've been, thanks, Nick, 127 or 187, something like that. 127. So
you can't really break the cycle. What you have to do is you have to create your own system. You have to isolate those and keep them to themselves so that they internally, essentially, it's just like a virus. You can't just, some of them you can't just kill. You have to let them run themselves out, essentially. There's no way that you can externally or internally affect them. You have to leave. You have to isolate it on its own, create your own system externally that supports these more positive outlooks of people and whatnot, and doesn't have these toxic underlying traits, because you're not gonna get it to go away. There's no possible way to do it.
But how do you break the site? I guess that's one, like you said, segregate them out.
Introspection. You watch yourself and you check yourself to make sure you're not doing the same dumb shit out of habit or association for what you've known.
Right.
It's a lot of work, but that's really the only way. You got to keep yourself in check. Yeah, and everybody has to do this, not just the person in charge.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that really, it's like that one person that we banished from the kindred. You remember that long time ago?
Justin?
Yeah. That was actually pretty easy. but it's hard for some folks to go up, oh, well, he's my friend, but he's not really like that. Well, you need to look at it from the outside. It goes back to, you don't have to like everybody. You don't even have to like everybody in your kindred. It helps a whole bunch, But if you got people in your kindred, it's the responsibility of the leader to build harmony, to enforce the rules. Like our biggest rule at Mountain Haven was politics ends at the driveway. And all we are here for is our gods, our goddesses, our ancestors. During this time period, it's not allowed at all. And
I think
just away from
every
that.
float that I've been to is, even the ones in Europe, they were absolutely against discussing politics or other
politics kills a group of friends. I mean, our kindred, we had folks that were very, very right to very, very left. I mean, we had, folks that are gay. We had folks that are trans. We had folks that didn't know who they were, but they were all welcome. We had we had African-American folks that come in once in a while, Hispanic folks. We had Catholics that showed up to our gatherings and all that.
Yeah, I remember that one.
We got along. Everybody.
But here's the difference, though. Here's the thing, Chuck, because I noticed this a lot. Politics ended at the door, but the reason why things worked is because people had it back then, and there's a little less time, or there's more time between now and then. Here today, people can't separate politics and things like morals and virtues because in many cases they are the same fucking thing for parties. And so when you're saying
very true.
Yeah, when you say someone is a Republican or someone's a Democrat, there are specific moral ties to that now. It's no longer just I vote for more of a capitalist of less social. I vote for more of a capitalist of more social. Now they have the association of, fucking racists who just want to run every non-white person out of the country, and then, fucking hippies who want to destroy us and turn us into Russia and the communists. Like, there is no way anymore for people on the base level of generalization to separate the two concepts. That's why it's such a problem.
And that's one of the reasons that I was such a bastard about not allowing it.
No, and I think that's...
I mean, that was one of the very few things I was murder on. And because it brought dishonor to the kindred.
That was the same thing that Alex and Susie had. You don't discuss politics. It's just forbidden. You just don't do it. And so people didn't.
It's fine to discuss politics, but there are times that you shouldn't. And bloat, a circle or gathering, or I don't know what some of the other terms would be.
Even at the dinner table.
Well, like my old man used to say, at Thanksgiving dinner, we don't talk about religion, politics, or anything else. We just eat. It's hard. I mean, Bill and I have talked about it a bunch of shows, and between 2015, when we did our last episode of Raven Radio, to today, things have changed a metric shit ton. A lot of it's been in Washington, but it's trickled down. I think Nina is absolutely correct. Is because instead of voting for a ideal of I want this type of representation to build more infrastructure, or I want this type of representation make me more, to save me money on my taxes and shit like that, has left into what do I call it? Fanboys. It's turned into a fucking fan club.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's because
politicians.
It's like the home. Well, no, it's like the small town concept of the home team. Somehow, the way that the representation and financial spendings of the country run has been tied into your very being, your personal representation. Like somehow, you're diehard about your home team, sports team, whatever sports ball thing you're into or whatever. Those two things are supposed to be very different concepts.
And we're
one
treating
is I have
politicians
loyalty because this is where I come from. The other one is I have loyalty for a financial and representative system. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why are people fucking fanatics about people and like figureheads?
And we're turning them into. I mean, it's like we're equating. This is me. We're equating people that in charge in Columbia, Santa Fe, Washington, Delaware, wherever, to Stevie Nicks or to whomever. And they're not. They are supposed to work for us. And this comes back into our first bit of the show on this is that going to drive into more of this homeschool?
Yes.
And then also it goes into
Yeah,
the
but I
second
don't
part.
think the homeschool thing will, even if they could install it, I don't think it would last 3 years. It'd turn into just a pack of bullshit.
But to fix
There's
it though,
absolutely nothing wrong with the public education, especially when you can get trained in real science, real history, and so on,
up to a
and
point,
language skills and common courtesy.
up to a point.
And
However, some of the changes in public education, it's like you and I learned a specific way to do mathematics.
oh yeah,
Okay.
don't even go there because I didn't even get past. I just barely do the addition subtraction.
Well, yeah, but you learned, we learned a way that was taught since Archimedes figured out that, hey, if I take this stick and put it against this other rock, I can move a big rock.
Right.
But a lot of things in public education have been detrimental to education. I got people in my department with master's degrees. And you'd like this one, Nina. And I put an algebra equation up on the board. And I told him, solve it. And he couldn't. And it was the basic equation that we use to compute stroke volume of the heart to get cardiac output. It was a thing that we did 15 times a day on 15 different patients. But he couldn't do it. And I said, I don't have a degree, or I don't have a useful degree in my field, but I don't have a degree. And
yeah, that's going into a whole other conversation about my issues with the education system, specifically collegiate level. That's a whole other show.
But a segregated homeschool, turning out bullies that are all going to vote to, I'm fairly conservative on some things, fairly liberal on others. I mean, that's just me. I see some things one way, and best way to describe it is fiscally conservative, socially liberal. I don't give a shit what you do. Spend my money well. And that's all I fucking care about. And I find myself more in a minority on that. But when you try to mix that into educating children, we end up with leaders as bullies. And
but that's the thing, it's a process, and it starts at the education level because these kids are going to be in the most impressionable stage of their lives. This is when their brains are forming the core of their being in terms of how they understand the world. If they go into this,
no question here, we're going to have to cut soon, but go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you.
The AFA is funding it by taking donations on their page right now, and I want to see if I put a negative number if they owe me money for reading this bullshit on their page.
And also, so you pay a pretty decent annual dues to be an AFA member. I don't know what it is now. It's something like $100 a family, and they have a lot of families. They have a lot of folks in it. I mean, it is a very large organization.
And they're fairly powerful within the U.S. There's a lot of kindreds in the U.S., but
yeah,
the big organizations like Ring of Truth, I don't think it is doing shit now. In Germany, they have Eldering, and that's basically the entire Austria and Germany both together. We don't have anything like that here, and I can't say I have any really good ideas to solve that problem. But again, I think that if they're going to come up with a curriculum, and I wouldn't mind if there were, several kindreds come together to create like a weekend program for children. To add to their schooling. But and I was thinking about that earlier today. I think it'd be kind of cool if you had 30 people that people from the educational fields and whatnot come together to devise a particular curriculum for heathen kids on the weekend. And that could be done in 2 morning sessions or whatever.
I'm not saying that I have an issue with homeschooling. I'm not saying that I have an issue with religious-based stuff like that.
I do not at
All
all.
I'm saying is that something as important as an educational system, specifically for kids of this age bracket that they're trying to go for, should not be issued by a religious entity that not only shows in their writing that they include racial connotations,
Right.
but I just looked through every single one of their HOFs, and every single one seems to be very full of melanin-challenged people. How are you going to get a full, all-encompassing sort of education that does not have any racial bias or,
It's going to
when
be
based on
difficult.
religious content from a group that literally has in the verbiage a racial term that associated and originated in its application with the Nazis? It was designed for the Nazis, by the Nazis.
One of the
And
people I
it's
work with,
been embedded in our system.
one of the people I work with,
That problem's been embedded since the
she's
start of the country. CRT was a hot item, about 2 months back. Critical race theory. And the thing for me about that is that the people who wanted to keep that out of the schools don't want the kids knowing the truth.
Correct.
They're hiding the truth. They're
Right.
covering it up and purposefully. I mean, they're hiding the truth. We haven't done everything great regarding immigration, or not only that. I had a friend back years ago now. He was Jewish, and he and his mom were going from, I think, New Jersey to like California or something like that. And he said that they were attacked constantly by people in the United States. They pull into a gas station. We don't serve Jews here and that kind of shit.
Yeah.
I personally never experienced that until I worked in West Texas. And when I worked in West Texas, I witnessed it firsthand and probably 13 inches away from my face. It's disgusting. But,
Yeah.
It has to be phased out. And if
Glasses.
there are programs, if a crew comes together and they put together a program, say, for weekend things for kids or whatever, to kind of supplement their schooling, it has to include the fucking truth. Can't be lying about it.
We can go on with this thing hours and hours, and maybe we should pick it up again next time and and actually hammer out some solutions. Maybe some, not solutions, but suggestions for solutions. I do got to go to bed here pretty quick.
Suggestions from other people that might view this video.
But yeah, so I got to get 5:30 comes early for this old bastard. Nina, Bill, thank you guys for coming. Oh, miss you guys. We all need to get back together. I need to get back to New Mexico sometime, but fuck, where's the time? Actually, Christina and I are taking finally a vacation. Just her and I.
There you go.
Well, it's our 30th
Shocker.
wedding anniversary. Well, it's our 30th wedding anniversary next month, and so we're actually doing a cruise to the Bahamas.
Oh, that sounds good.
All right,
Cindy
folks.
did that like 5 months before she died. They took a Caribbean cruise.
That's what we will have to talk about next time. Sean asks in here, I'll pop it up here. Is there anyone other than the AFA doing homeschool? Luckily you asked, and I don't think there's much in the heathen side of it that's
I don't think
big.
there is either.
There is a lot of pagan resources for it. And I think maybe we should talk about some of that next time. What say you two? All right, folks, well, I got to get, it's a little about 10 minutes after 10 here. You guys are still got a couple hours left before you got to crash out. Thanks again for joining us. It's always a blast. Everybody, have a great night. See ya.